Sorry about that. I'm just about to flip the camera and hopefully this time we'll be a little more successful. Oh, the people there. Right, I'm back again. Absolutely. I'm not going to touch the camera. What I'm not going to know is if it buffers again because I now can't see my screen. Fingers crossed. Okay. Right. So the Kerchief card kit. I'm just going to go and put it up on my laptop just so that I can hopefully see what's going on. Hey, Marge. Okay, so fingers crossed. And as I say, I might end up just talking to myself. I can, if I stand on tiptoe, I can just about see you, as in the screen, but that's about it. So I'm just going to kind of get started. So the card kit, and I've got, here's one I opened earlier, makes 4 cards of each of 2 designs. It's free with a £45, I'm going to talk sterling. It's free with a £45 order during celebration. Some of you may have seen some of my alternatives already, but I'm going to go through how I make them. So I've got a little box, which is a standard lidded box. I've got a slightly squished pizza box. I'm not going to do the vellum die cutting today, just for brevity's sake. I've got a little chocolate box holder. It will be different. It will be slightly narrower in North American card. I'm in Europe, so therefore I am going to use A4, which is slightly longer, slightly narrower. So apologies for that, but there we go. I can only do what I can do, as they say. And then let me, oops, don't need that. Let me just show you. Oh, and I forgot to die cut those. Hey ho. Those are just the envelopes, don't need to see those. So this is one of the alternatives, which is vellum. So I've got hearts caught in vellum. Then that's one of the originals. That is also one of the originals, which I did when I was showing this as just a show and tell. And where's the other original gone? There we go. This is one of the other originals. Then I've got alternatives. This one uses one of the cutouts masked or mounted for a mask. I'll show you that when we get to it. And then I've got an early espresso one, a fairly simple on petal pink, and a fairly simple one on balmy blue. I haven't managed to use absolutely everything in the kit, but pretty close. It comes with tags that are already in English, French or German. So if you've got friends overseas who, or indeed if you're in Europe or French Canada, I don't know if the French Canadian is quite the same as the ordinary French, but there are other languages. So let me go through exactly what you get in the kit and then we will start. So let me open this one up. So it comes nicely carded and it's a really nice stiff piece of card. So Fingers crossed nothing gets damaged in transit. And we have a sheet of sticky dots, some thick kind of linen-y thread and some dimensionals, all our envelopes, and you get 4 each of the blue and the pink, some plain vellum, some spotted vellum, your die cuts, that's all the envelopes there, your card blanks, which are printed, so the inside is white, all of your lovely foiling. Now mine is a bit dusty, but it just wipes lovely and clean. So those 2, and then your sentiments. So you don't even have to stamp. Now, for me, that means this is perfect if you've got any friends or relatives who you want to get into card making. They can, if you get this for them, they can get on with making cards without the worry of not being able to stamp properly, which I know some people get a bit scared of. The instructions come in English, German, French, and Japanese, and it lists the colours, which are Balmy Blue, Coastal Cabana, Early Espresso, Mossy Meadow, Night of Navy, Pear Pizzazz, Petal Pink, and Poppy Parade. And it does remind us that vellum is horrible for sticking without the adhesive showing. So, yeah. The steps are minimal. So you've got adhere with stamping dimensionals and adhere with adhesive dots, and it's just 1 and 2. So I thought I would start by making one of each of the cards, and as described, and then go on to my alternatives. So let's start with the Coastal Cabana one, and all we need for that is the sentiments, which I've now lost, buried, also known as. So I need Let's Celebrate Today, or Celebrate Today. So I need that. I need a piece of the spotty vellum, and that fits beautifully in the middle of the space on the card. I need some of the twine, and I'll finish using up the one I've got. I need die cuts. So I need, you get 2 sheets of the blue and Coastal Cabana. So I need 1 of each of those. Ironed. 1 of these. 1 of these, 2 of these. 2 of these. Because we've got 4 cards, therefore I need 2. And then I need 2 large and 1 small of the gold foil. So I don't think I've got any of those left in my original kit. Oh no, I have. So 2 large, because I went off piste, I didn't use everything that I would have used if I'd been making the cards. So 2 large, 1 small. Now, at this point, this is where I ignore the instructions, because I can, because I kind of know what I need to do. But the instructions basically just say what you're going to adhere with what. Now, those of you who have known me for any length of time will know that I get really annoyed by things like the pips on the edge of the die cuts. So I will just go around and remove them. You don't have to, but for me, it's the difference between a nice card and a really nice card. Because if you've got these funny little fuzzy bits sticking out the side, yeah, not me at all. So again, we've got... So the interesting thing is, this is going to be famous last words. So I now seem to be going live okay, without buffering. And I don't know why. Whether it was just, we've got a bit of a storm here again. It's hail they're forecasting today, so that'll be nice. So whether it's something to do with that, I don't know. I'm not going to bother taking the pips off of these because they're so jagged anyway. I don't think it'll make any difference. So glue dots work really nicely on the spotted vellum, because you can put them behind the spots. So if I grab my take your pick tool, I can remove a dot and then just find one of the circles and pop one on, and then just repeat this a few times. So let's pop that one there. Why is it always when I'm live that my hand starts shaking? And I don't know why. I'm not shy and retiring or anything like that. It's just for some reason that's what they want to do. Okay, so that's really all we need to adhere that. It's not as if it's going to take much pressure. So that is our vellum, and then all we need to do is, now I am going to use snail and liquid adhesive purely because it's quicker than you guys having to watch me remove the backings of glue dots. So there's that, and this then gets stuck up with dimensionals. I'm going to use my dimensionals to stick the pieces on, because that means I only have to use one lot of adhesive. I'm actually going to use my normal dimensionals for no good reason other than I can, in effect. So the first thing that goes on, okay, so I was going to say the first thing that goes on is the leaves, but of course I'm now covered in dimensional. So I want one of these there. That one can, oops, it helps if that is actually stuck down under there. So that's that. So I'm going to do some on the first layer and some on the second layer, by which I mean I'm going to stick some of these under and some over. It just gives a bit more dimension. And then just one more there. And then these I'm going to stick to the blue card. So let me get my blue. So that's going to go there. So I want that kind of there. Just remember, you don't want to go outside the area of the actual card. And yes, I know I've just stuck something onto my grid sheet that has adhesive on, but it's fine. So this one we'll put just there. And then if I remove the backing of the one-dimensional I haven't removed the backing of, that can go there. And then Celebrate You, or Celebrate Today rather, can just get popped on with some more dimensionals, but not before we've removed the pips. Now you can do this with an emery board. Nothing wrong with that. Works really well. And then this just pops under there. And then the final touch is a piece of the twine. And I'm just going to tie it with an easy Auntie Betty bow. So I'm just hoping that the hail doesn't start before we finish, because with the Velux windows in my studio, that's going to be noisy. I'm actually going to use an ordinary glue dot for this, purely because, again, it's so much easier for me than the ones that are on the sheet. And that I'm just going to tuck in there. And you can trim these lengths down if you want, but that's one of the cards that you can make in the kit. The other one is the red one, so the Poppy Parade one. Now this one gets a little more exciting because we've got clear vellum. So that one gets more exciting because adhesive will show through. So let me find my original one of those, which is this one. So we're going to do it this way. Now we've got this lovely great big sentiment that we can pop in the middle. So let me grab that and do the inevitable of removing any pips I can see. Actually this time aren't too bad. So this is going to go in the middle. So on the basis that that's going there, I know that I can add adhesive right the way across where that's going to be. And you will then see the problem with adhesive and vellum. So can you see just how ugly that is? Not good. Right, okay, so we need lots and lots of the foil items. So we need a couple of the small ones, so I'll use up what's on my original sheet, or one of my original sheets, and then grab a new sheet. So we need 2 top and 2 bottom of each of these, of this one rather. It's lovely. I love these foil bits. And they're really well die cut, so you're not going to have trouble getting them out if I can do it on camera. Okay, we're back. I don't know how long for, but who knows? Oh, right. So I was just tying this, wasn't I? It could well be the weather. It is blowing quite a hooligan. That said, I should be on the Wi-Fi. Oh, need to turn the camera around. So much better when the camera's the right way around. I love that it resumes the wrong way up. And pop that on. Okay, so let's start on the alternative projects and keep our fingers firmly crossed that things are going to go according to plan. Finally. So I'm going to start with the pizza box. So I need one of the Poppy Parade card blanks. I'm just going to pop everything into my little box so that I know where everything is, rather than struggling to find everything. Okay, are we still there? We're still there, good grief. Right, okay, so I need to cut this panel down at the back. So let me grab my lovely trimmer. I do like our new trimmer. What I need to do is to get this crease here onto the 3 1/4 mark. So I need it there. Now, fortunately, we've got these lovely 1/4 inch lines that go down our trimmer. So if I grab a ruler, I can line up to the 3 1/4, which is there, and then just pull this so that it lines up. Now the alternative, of course, is that because it's what, 4 1/2, 4 inches, 4 1/4 even, rather than lining up to 3 1/4, I can take off 1 inch. So that's probably the easier way of doing it. So line up this end to your 1 inch mark and just trim off. And then with the scoring blade, we're going to score 1 inch on all of the sides. So we're going 1 inch here. Now you can do this on your Simply Scored if you would rather, but as I have this out, I'm going to use this. And then the only other one we need to do is the one here. So again, we need that to be on the 4 1/4 here, and then this will be 1 inch. And that is all our scoring. So as ever with a box, you're going to score, crease, burnish. The bone folder makes a huge difference, so do bear that in mind. Bone folder, good. Right, okay, so standard pizza box. You cut so that you've got the bits coming in the direction you want. That sounds like obvious stuff, doesn't it? By which I mean I want these pieces to fold back and these to fold forwards. So to get that to happen, I'll actually do it from this side, it might be easier for you to see. I'm going to cut along the straight edge and I'm going to leave the score line on the piece of card that I'm going to use as my seam, and then just cut that away. And again here, again, I'm going to cut with the seam on the square, cut away, seam on the square, cut away, seam on the square, cut away, and repeat again on the other side. And for speed, I will just go in the order in which the cuts appear. So this is how I would do it if I was not teaching, as it were. I would just keep cutting. But for speed, just bearing in mind we've been buffering most of the morning, she says, just checking that we're not, and we're not, hurrah! So those are rubbish, and this is now our basic box. This is the lid. So the base is what you make up. So the base is what you make into a full box, as it were, and then the lid goes over the top. So I'm going to grab my adhesive, and all of these are going to have glue on. So I'm going to do them and then stick them. Ooh, and apparently glue my grip paper as well. Now, obviously, in the privacy of your own home, you can spend a little more time on this. I could have used tear and tape. My thought process is that probably takes as long. So bring the edge round to meet the crease and then just hold in place for a moment. And same again on this side. I tend to do a little bit of a jiggle with it. It helps spread the glue out and make it a thinner layer, and therefore it makes it quicker to actually stick. So again, let's wiggle that a little. And the last one on the base. And then the two on the lid. And then just come in and press those seams down so that they are well and truly adhered. And then you've got your little box. Now, what I do tend to do is, because it's then easier, is put a thumb hole in. So, oh, interesting. Where's my little punch gone? I thought oh, it's there. It's out, ready. Ha! So for the thumb hole, I'm just going to do it by eye and kind of find the middle. And the middle is reasonably symmetrical, this pattern. So you've got these two flowers here. If you're between those two flowers, you're likely to be fairly central. And then there is your little pizza box. And then all we need to do to finish that off is to grab a sentiment and do the inevitable. Now you could, if you wanted, put vellum on top. What I actually did was I used the vellum for die cuts. I could use the leaf punch. So I've got that punch, and just thinking of things that are quicker than getting out the die cut, and the sprig. So actually I think we might use the sprig punch so that I can grab one of my bits of vellum and will this fit in the other way? This is the question, because I'd quite like to have... No, that's annoying, isn't it? Don't think it will. No. Okay, it won't, so it won't. That's fine. I'll live with it. But you can get 3 out quite nicely. So let me grab some more of the gold. So I'm just going to use a couple of the gold. And then the 3 sprigs that we've got. And where's my snail gone? I buried my snail. There it is. Actually, I'll grab a silicone mat. The only thing you have to watch with using the silicone mat and this foil is that if the adhesive gets onto the foil, it's not very attractive. I'm going to be covering it up, so I'm not too worried, but it's a bit like getting adhesive on vellum. It's equally not attractive, just in a different way. So that's those. And then dimensionals, and we'll have one that end. Let's see where we're going. Okay, right, so I need to have them so that they're over the sort of little hump. I'll show you what I mean by the hump in a minute. So what I mean by the hump is this bit here. And then if we cut this one in half, we can layer that half on. Let's pop another dimensional in each of the other corners. So just pop that on there, and that on there. And then we have our finished box with a little thumb hole and a nice little box to put little trinkets in. So that's the box. Right, so that's that. Now the blue box, which is this one, we're only going to use a card front. So let me grab my mini chopper and chop him off. So that's all we need for this one. And I need some Knight of Navy card. And my other trimmer. So the Knight of Navy you want cut at 6 1/4 by 7 1/2. So we're going to need the arm out. Now I would do my 6 1/4 this way purely because I end up with a bigger piece left over. So 6 1/4, this is my scrap. by 7.5. And then we're going to score at 2 inches on each edge. And I am going to use my scoring board because I find it quicker. So we're going to score the lid at 1 inch and the base at 2 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this, I'm going to score at 1 inch. And again, just fold and burnish. And I'm going to make the lid first. Because I've gone for exact measurements, I want to make sure that the base will fit the lid. Actually, will I make the lid first? No, I'll make the base first. So I'm going to make one and then make the other one round it. So let's cut everything that needs to be cut. So I'm going to cut again with the long edge being the seam. Just wanted to check what I did on the original. I like to make sure that I do the same thing on everything, just so that there's no questions as to why did you do it that way when it was obvious that last time you did it that way. Oop. So if you've got any questions, although I can't answer them necessarily now, do pop them in the comments and then I can go back and answer them for you later. And I will do that as soon as we've finished with this. So this, I'm going to be cutting these ones down because otherwise we're going to have too much bulk. But otherwise, we are basically doing the same thing. But what I'm going to do is cut the sides first. And then cut down before I wedge. So just cut down. And I'm leaving at 3/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch, that sort of thing. And then just wedge. And this time I will use tear and tape because it's a relatively small seam. It should be fairly quick to put together. And then I'll use wet adhesive on the lid. And I will explain why I'm going that way in a moment. I keep looking to see if it's all right still. Okay, so this is where the seam is going to be. So that's the bit that I'm worried about. It's the absolute edge. I'm not too worried about this bit. That bit will take care of itself, as it were. So I'm hoping, if I can work out what on earth has been going on with the buffering, I'm hoping that I will be able to make the YouTube Live a reasonably regular feature. Thursday mornings works reasonably well for me because my husband has a music lesson, so isn't around to fuss. Does, however, mean that if the phone goes, it just has to go to answer phone, which is fine. So yes, I'm thinking that this is not a bad time of day or day of week. Right, so that is our basic base. And then this I'm going to make around it. I might be brave and use tear and tape. Because this is now at an angle, I want to make sure that the angle goes into the... Ooh, that's not what I wanted to do. We'll fold that back in a moment. Am I the only person that finds tear and tape great for long lengths, but not so great when you want a short length? Either that or bring in a pair of scissors if you don't mind getting sticky. Right, so let's remove the backings. Let's remove the backings, fold that in because we don't want it sticking out. So it does make it easier to remove the backings if you burnish the tape down so that it's properly adhered to the base. So what I'm going to do is pop my sides up and then put the other edge up to it. This is where 5 hands is a lot easier. So that's that side. And then I need to get those so they're coming in the way. So these, might do this way up, I think. Might be slightly easier. So we'll fold those in and then press down. And then we've got a nice, neat, fits really snugly base and bottom. And then I just use some of the denim ribbon from the annual catalogue to tie round. So that's that one. Right, I now need early espresso and Poppy Parade. Is that going to be big enough? Is that going to be big enough? It needs to be 4 1/4 inches. I don't think it will be. No. Okay, we won't be using that piece then. We will use a nice new piece. And I also need petal pink. That may... Whew, that's big enough. Yay! Can use a scrap. Okay, so this is for the chocolate box. The first thing I'm going to do is the ribbon. So that is a piece of the gold-edged, very vanilla metallic ribbon from the annual catalogue. So I'm going to cut a length of that and grab my dark petal pink blend and a silicone mat. You can see I've been using this before. And the brush end, and simply colour your ribbon. Now you do then need to clean your silicone mat with alcohol, because you will end up with colours on your silicone mat, which is fine if you're putting a darker colour down, but if you're putting petal pink and there's already basic black, not a great look, because it will pick up, because the alcohol in the pen will pick up the ink from the silicone mat. So that does need to dry just very quickly, and I need to take my jumper off because I'm very warm. Right, okay, so I'm just going to dangle that somewhere, and I probably won't remember where I've put it, so we'll have a panic in a moment. Right, okay, so trimmer, I need a sheet of, this is where if you're in North America, you're going to end up with a slightly narrower box, because I'm just using the length of A4, and I'm going to cut it at 4 1/4, which I have a sneaking suspicion is the wrong measurement. Just had that sneaking suspicion. Oh no, it is right. Oh, phew, had a panic there for a moment. And then petal pink, I need to cut at 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So 4 1/8 is exactly the measurement we've got. And then 5 3/8, 1, 2, 3/8 is also the measurement we've got. Marvellous, that's fluke. And then the front of my card, I'm going to cut to 5 1/4 by 4. So what I'm going to do is start off by cutting the back off, and then I'm going to, so I want 5 1/4 by 4, so I'm going to do 4 1/8 first, and then 4. And this is just so that basically I'm trimming an eighth of an inch off each end or side. So this I want 5 3/8, and then 5 1/4. So that I end up with 4 1/8 and 4 and 5 1/4. So, brain freeze. While I've got this out, I might as well use it. So I'm going to score 5 1/2 inches from each end. So basically we're going to end up with the front being card front size. So that's that. Oh, except that's the wrong piece. Wrong piece. Let's do the right piece, shall we? Let's do that again correctly. That's more like it. So that's that. Then on Poppy Parade, I need 7 1/4 by 3 3/4. So I'm going to do my 3 3/4 this way. And my 7 3/4, 7 1/4 even, this way. So pleased I bothered to write the measurements down. I'm just having to be very careful around my lights. One of my lights is just here and it's on a little tripod, which is great, apart from the fact it's kind of in the way. This is my new lighting, and I'm not convinced it's where it needs to be. I need to work out how to do it so that it doesn't get in my way. Right, so the Poppy Parade I am going to score at 1 1/2 inches on each side, and this will make the, whoops, doesn't matter because that's going to be hidden. This will make the container, as it were. So that's the base, and then that will go over there, and then we'll build the front. So the only box piece we need to make is the Poppy Parade. So again, fold and burnish. And I will be trimming down the seams because it's all going into a very, very small space. Get the right scissors. So I'm going to have this piece coming in. So I'm going to cut so that the seam or the score line is on this piece. And again. convinced I did it this way last time, but never mind. Fold those pieces in, trim these down. And I'm just going to trim them so that they're, you know, the right sort of size for tear and tape. But again, you could use adhesive. My adhesive of choice, and I get through bucket loads of it, is the Tombow. I love that it gives you that little bit of movement before things are set, but dries clear. So all good from that point of view. Right, tear and tape. And I'm going to be rash. I'm going to cut some pieces. And just pray that they're kind of the right size. A bit short, but they'll be fine. Okay. And the last one. And then these just fold in. Like that. This folds up, and we will finally be putting that in there. But before we do, so that we're not decorating something that's moving, I have got my petal pink piece, which I am going to pop on the front of my container. The front is whichever side I decide the front is going to be. So this is now the front. And because I don't like thinner card or paper having glue put on it, I put the glue onto what I'm sticking it onto. I know that I've just got a narrow margin, so long as I stay within that narrow margin that I'm working to, it's all good. Press that down, find the lid, and then I need one of my pieces of vellum. So this will go in the front here, and my ribbon, which is now a little bit stiff, but is perfectly dry. And I'm going to be sticking there and there. So she says, yes, that's what I'm going to be doing. So I'll put some adhesive there, some adhesive there. Oh, and of course, they're now the wrong way round. That wasn't clever. So this is going to be the mirror image of the last one. For crying out loud, Liz. For crying out loud. You'd think I was a professional card maker. And I'm just going to grab my dark petal pink and celebrate today, because I want to, I'm going to do something very naughty. I'm going to use the back of my card. It's early espresso. Petal pink's not going to impact on it at all. But I wanted to change the colour, and it doesn't matter what colour you change them. Just grab your blend and colour it. It will need to dry a bit before I put adhesive on, because the alcohol in the blend will nullify the adhesive. So where are we? We are there. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, bearing in mind I've now decided we're making the mirror image, is add that onto there. So let's add some more snail. Don't you love it when a plan doesn't come together. So we'll pop that there, that there, a bit too far, that there, a bit more adhesive, and that across to there. Then I can find my scissors again. Oh, buried. And trim. And trim. And then all I'm going to pop on here is one of the small gold foil pieces. And one of, where are you? There you are. One of these. And then at the bottom, I'm going to do another of the large foil pieces and a small foil piece. So this needs dimensionals. And I'm just going to pop a little bit of adhesive down there and layer up my foil pieces. One, two, pop the label on. I'm doing it this way purely because it's then going to be easier than trying to make pretty things on top of a moving raised piece. Pop that there, and then a dimensional on the back of this, and pick up my foil piece and pop that there. And then this I'm going to stick on with with liquid adhesive because I want to be able to move it around a bit. So I'll do the base first. So that is nicely stuck. And then I can do the other pieces. So that can go there. And bring everything up and hold it in place for a bit because it's naturally going to want to spring open. So just hold that in place, give it a bit of pressure. And then actually what I will do is grab a mini library clip. And if I clip that together at the top, which I want to do anyway, that will help keep body and soul together at the bottom while the glue is setting. And again, you could use tear and tape if you want, but I haven't. And this is, in metric terms, this is ideal for the small dairy milk multi-bar packs, or multi-pack bars even. You can get 3 in quite nicely. So one is the mirror image of the other. So that's that one. What else have we got? Let's have a look at what else we need to do. Some of these are relatively straightforward, so I may not show you how to do those in full. This one I will, only because I want to show you the mask that I've made. So all I did was cut out one of the pieces from the shiny sheet and stick it just with liquid adhesive to a mask. And then if I grab one of my card blanks, now you can use whatever you want to do your blending. I happen to have chosen a brush, and it's just a makeup brush, but a sponge dauber would be fine too. And then just decide where you're going to have your images and just add some ink through the mask. As I say, you could use a sponge dauber, be perfectly fine. I might be tempted, if I was using a sponge dauber, to add a bit of glycerin. So put some ink onto a block and a tiny, tiny, weeny amount of glycerin, which I thought I had on my desk, but seems to have been, what a surprise, buried. Oh no, there it is. So just the tiniest bit of glycerin or glycerol, depending on what you call it, but it's just, you can use it for cooking. So you can get it in a food store, you can get it off the internet, you can get it from wherever you want, but it is readily available in food stores, as in, you know, supermarket type food stores. I just find that if I'm using a sponge dauber or a sponge, it just makes the ink move more smoothly, which is basically what you're doing with the mask as well. And there you have your masked images. So just add a bit of frou-frou and pop that there. And then to make the card, all I need to do is grab some of these, do my inevitable, even though we've been going for over an hour, pip removal. Now, anyone who's watching in playback, hopefully, apart from the fact that it buffers a bit, this should be part of the second video, because I resumed my previous video. So, bit of adhesive. Couple of dimensionals. Bit of twine. And it is now raining. Oh joy. So the village has a lunch club that meets one Thursday a month, and today is lunch club day, and it's open to all residents who are 50 or over. So my husband and I go along. It's a great way of making sure that people get out of the house, have a good meal. I mean, it's kind of school dinners stuff, but none the worse for that. So I'm just untwirling the twine, because it's quite thick, this twine, and I think it's quite nice to just soften it a bit. So all I'm doing is going in the opposite direction from the twist to untwist it. And then you can do that again. It's 3-ply of double ply. Actually, no, it's 3-ply of 3-ply looking at it. So lots of really thin layers, and you can just untwist it. So I won't waste your time doing that now, but yeah, do just, you know, look at things fully, and then just grab a glue dot and pop that there, and grab a sentiment. Let's go French this time. I went German last time, so we'll go French this time. And another couple of dimensionals. And I've not put one on this end because that's going to go over the rows. There, I think. And then just fold and burnish. Now, the other cards I'm going to kind of talk you through. So this is the back of a piece of this, which we have spare. So we've already cut that off. And then this is the liner of one of the envelopes, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. This is the back of another card. So this is the back of the card that we made the chocolate box out of. And again, the liner. These gold strips, this is liner and then a piece of vellum split. So really easy, and that's on Early Espresso. So Early Espresso, Petal Pink, Balmy Blue. To get your liner paper, just grab one of your envelopes and I tend to do the bottom first. Now you can use your trimmer for this, but I've got my lovely mini guillotine, so I'm going to use that. And just take the very bottom off your envelope, and then you can rip the seam, because the reason I say take the very bottom off is because you can't see where this is. It's better than getting it wrong. And then we can just line that up. Actually, if we go, let's make it easy for ourselves and go on a straight edge. So just line that up with the edge of your guillotine. And then I've been tending to cut this piece off because it's got a crease. So I don't like a crease in the middle of my paper. But you could use this for punched items. And the last piece. And this then ends up, let me grab a ruler. This ends up 4 1/4 by 5 1/4-ish. So it's not the right size for any card front, but you can use it as a mat or layer, which is what I've done. And I've basically just cut this down. So for the gold lines, I need this. And again, all I've done, and this time I did use the sensible size trimmer as opposed to the mini trimmer. So I used the large trimmer and then just line up. It's much easier when you've taken all the foil out, but just line up so that you can't quite see the track, and then just trim. And then this is perfect for just little accents. And of course you've got 2 sheets of this, so you've got 4 long and 2 short pieces that you can cut off and then just adhere, and it's still perfectly usable. So that's how I got those, and then just layered lots of bits up. So as I say, this is split, so I just cut the vellum in half and split it out so that it looked as if it was wider. So I think I'll call that a day for now. I'm staggered that there is anyone still watching, bearing in mind we'll be going even on this for over an hour. But thank you very much indeed. If you have sort of enjoyed this, I would love to hear from you. Do give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, don't forget to do so. I will upload this video to my YouTube channel so that it's there forever, so I can be embarrassed by watching it back. But thank you very much indeed. Do remember, if you're in the UK, you can shop with me, and I will make sure that the code for that is, the host code is below, and I will do some close-up photos of these cards and pop them onto a blog post as well, and that will also be in the description below. Give me about an hour probably to get that sorted out. But thank you very much indeed for bearing with me on my first live YouTube video, and let's see if we can make this a regular thing. Thanks a lot again. Bye!